Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of GameCamp webinar. Today we'll be presenting the founder's journey. So two founders will be presenting how they were building their gaming company, what the experience they got, what actual learnings they can share with the crowd. So I think really interesting opportunity to look at the growth of the gaming company from kind of helicopter view. So let's invite to the stage our speakers. So the first one, Vojislav Milutinovic, CEO of Two Desperados. He will be telling how actually he grew the gaming studio from a very small scale to one of the biggest ones in the Adriatic region. Hello, Vojislav.
Hi, Mariusz. Thank you for calling me.
Thank you. Then let's invite to the stage Michal de Voronin, who is Michel. I hope I pronounced it in the right way. So he's the co-founder of the Blackout Lab. So he'll be sharing actually how he founded the company, how he grew it actually from the beginning to really interesting size, and what kind of learnings he can share with the crowd. Hello, Michel. I think. And then let's invite our next speaker, Florence Simon, who is gaming growth manager from Google.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Mariusz.
Okay, so like to everyone who is listening to that webinar, if you would like to get like the most recent and fresh information about all the new webinars happening in the future, you can actually sign up for the GameCamp newsletter, and then every few weeks you will get the recent information about what's happening in the next weeks. And then, of course, as always, we'll encourage you to join our event at Slido. It's a really great opportunity to ask questions to founders, especially once you are looking at the growing your company, or you are thinking to set up the company, or like you are thinking to join the startup, especially once you're working right now at the like big company and thinking about moving to smaller one. It's really a good opportunity to ask the questions to people who actually have the first-hand experience from that space. So just go to the GameCamp, sorry, to the Slido website, and just add GameCamp as the nickname of the event. Okay, without spending a lot of time on that, let's invite our first speaker, Vojislav, who will be actually his experience.
Hi, Mariusz, you choose the worst image ever, but I'm gonna work with that. So I hope that you hear me good. I'm gonna share the presentation. Just a second. Yeah. Just this. Yeah. Just to be sure. Yeah. And I hope that you see the presentation. If yes, just confirm me. Yeah, cool. Mariusz called me like maybe 2 months ago and asked me to create a presentation for the people who are like on the C level, or they're founders or CEOs. And I was thinking like how to do that. Okay, what to present, what I can give you as something valuable to you guys. First of all, it's the path that you have chosen is pretty challenging and pretty hard. And I just want to help you in a way that to share my thoughts and my experience in this. I can tell you right now, 21 years experience as an entrepreneur. So I'm more than 21 year an entrepreneur. I have so many different phases. In most of the time, I was a underdog. I didn't succeed. Most of the time in my life, I failed. And I just want to say it's about my story, and it's super important to know that here is not like an ego thing, like this is how I have done, but it's just my share to you, so you can maybe identify yourself with the things that you are doing. So first of all, I just want to tell you like hello to you guys, and I just put a couple of things. This is my second company. I'm 41 years old. I had 21-year experience in entrepreneurship. Most of the times I failed. And now Two Desperados is one of the biggest gaming company in the Adriatic region. And it's around 70 people. It should be around 100 to the end of the year. And I'm going to start with something that is something pretty new, okay? Our last soft launch, which happened like 3 weeks ago, is the best soft launch we ever had. We have the best metrics, best retention ever. This is super important KPI for games, and that means people love to play this game, and it's called Muffinville. It's in soft launch, so that means there is big chance you cannot play it still. It should be launched to the end of the year. And why is this important? Because there is another slide, another broader view, okay? And this bigger picture this is a third game, and which is interesting. Before Muffinville, Vala's Quest was the best game. And after that, before that was Voka. So the main thing here, what I want to show you, is that in last 6-7 years, we created 3 games, and every time the last game was better than the previous one. So this is okay. This is my conclusion, but I think I'm seeing a path and not just a singular success. So I'm going to go to the next slide, which I'm going to go through all the things. So Two Desperados is entering the second decade of existence. And we are like 11, 12 years old. Every product has been better than the last one. The pandemic year was the most successful one. And I just have to tell you, it's not because of the pandemic, but because of the best user acquisition that we ever have made. The highest monthly income was the last month. So the last month we created the best revenue ever and the biggest profits ever. And the whole point of this, all the words I'm going to give you after this, is I think I see a path, not just a lucky strike. The reason I'm saying this is because when you see this kind of stuff, you ask yourself, why? What I have done now that I haven't done 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And we can start with really many factors. I think I have an excellent team. One of the key things we figure out, low ego. We always try to learn. Perfect moment. You have to have a little bit of luck and many other things. But this is the whole point. I don't want to focus on those things today. I want to focus on something others. And as you can see, I will try to be more personal. And the reason I'm doing this is because this is like guys, you're C-level managers, founders, CEOs, and that's why when you're up, you're pretty lonely there, and you try to figure out things, and you many times you don't know what to do. And what I just want to say, like, what I think is my most important feature as an entrepreneur. This is something with 20+ years of experience, and I will try to be super simple, okay? And you saw I put a line after like I think, because I really hate high egos, because high egos is a bad thing. And the thing that I'm going to reveal here, it's not going to be something that you haven't heard, but it's going to be a confirmation. And that confirmation will be a little simple step in your lives and give you a little bit like, certainty that you are on the right track. So the most important thing, I think, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, what you need is a persistence. And persistence is like, can be a bad thing. I mean, like if you're persistent in a bad way, in a wrong direction, that's not good. But overall, persistence is a good thing. And there is a reason why here is an image. Okay, you see this picture. Okay, this picture is taken by me, and on that image is Ahmed. Ahmed is my friend from South Africa, and this is taken 1998, where I have been creating my first pitch, my first demo of the game. And the pitch was, the demo was shown to Electronic Arts, and Electronic Arts said, yeah, we want to publish your game, but you have to finish it. I was in South Africa, and the problem was I lost my visa. I have to got back to Serbia, and I never continued this project. And now it's 2021, and I'm on the same road, you see? And I believe the persistence is the most important thing for success. There is a lot of other things, so many. But if I have to choose one, to focus on one, the persistence will be. And one of the things about persistence, it's mostly tell you about past. And I don't think so that's enough. I wanted to add one more layer. And this layer is interesting, you're gonna see. And that's obsession. And this word is really, you can describe Vojislav with obsession, that's for sure. And obsession is can be really hard, and can be really, can bounce you in really wrong ways. One of the things that I learned in last 20 years is to control obsession. And obsession, whatever it is, it's a vision, it's some goal, whatever. Just to give you an idea, I'm 41. I don't believe that I'm going to be a super good CEO at 90. So I give me a goal that I believe after 50, that's enough. That's enough what Vojislav can do. And this is a timer that I have on my phone, which is clicking all day long, and it shows me how much time I have to make my vision live. And on the other side, we have this persistence. But on one side, I'm really obsessed with my goals. I'm really obsessed, guys. This is like every weekends, day, night. I really live my company, my vision. You're gonna see about it. And I'm gonna stop here, and I'm gonna put you something that drives me. Okay, why I have this obsession? How I'm like obsession and persistence without some meaningful goal is. It's useless. So I have a problem, okay? And my problem is that technology that we are living right now is something that I really don't like. I mean, technology is really excellent and it's flourishing and creating my life much richer. but there is many things that is not as we want it to be. For example, I'm in gaming industry, and we are creating games that we just want people to be super addictive. Big tech companies practically sneakily cash in our information. Usage is being tracked and recorded to deliver engaging advertisements. So the whole point is that on one side, we have a player. On the other side, we have artificial intelligence, big investment boards, money makers. And one of the craziest things is that for the first time in our history, we have artificial intelligence that works side to side with investment funds. And for example, one of the things I figure out, knowledge doesn't make you less susceptible to usage cravings. And I was thinking, like, I don't want to live in the world like that. I want to make games. I want to make lives richer to my players. And that's why I create the vision, okay, which is completely fine, and it's easy to understand. I want to design games and technologies that puts players at the center of a cutting-edge gaming experience. And what that means when you talk with Vojislav, no matter if you are an investor, employee, whoever you are, this is what you should aim to. And this is something I have to tell you now that my companies get bigger. It's not that common that you see people who really want to make things better. And many times you're gonna see investments fund, practically money driving the vision of the companies. That doesn't mean the money is a fuel. You need that, but that's just a fuel, not the whole idea. And one of the things that I put like to myself, I said, like, okay, how I can do that? I'm going to protect the player attention, habits, and privacy. I'm going to redefine monetization system in gaming, and I'm going to personalize games in the way that nobody have done still. So this is 3 things I'm going to try next 10 years, 8 and something. You saw the counter to do. And this is the last slide. So guys, this is after this. I'm ending. Try to live this vision every day, all day long. One of the things I learned is that you have to live this, you have to be this. And trust me, if you know me, you'll know that I'm in love with my company. I really love what I'm doing. And the whole point is that you have to live this. You have to believe in whatever you try to do, and people around you will start be led by you. So it's a really important part. And I'm gonna end here. I have a LinkedIn. You can add me. You can ask me whatever you want. You can chat. I'm not gonna be super responsive, but I will respond for sure. And so this is like the end of my presentation. So Mariusz, I suppose I'm giving a mic to you, so you can
Thank
continue.
you for the interesting presentation. Maybe, like, if we kind of maybe ask one question to before we go to the next presentation, like you mentioned this vision, yeah, as something quite important, yeah. So it's like because when I talk to many people, they see it as something like, okay, it's kind of maybe interesting to have, but it's more kind of, okay, part of, let's call it, corporate bullshit, or like, how it's your view in this case, and what it means for you in case of, like, practicality. I mean, what do you think, like, changed in your company and your behavior and your interaction with the company once you had this kind of created?
I'm gonna give you an example. A meeting 2 days ago. An example how we live a vision. We have a meeting where we figure out we give too many boosters to the players, and they stop buying new ones because we give them a lot. And suggestion from monetization was, let's keep that low. For example, let's cut down those new boosters, and over the time they're gonna spend all the boosters they have, and then we're gonna make money, and we're gonna continue making money because they're gonna. But then other person said, like, but that's not gamer player centric. Let's make our games more interesting and funny, and let's make them spend more boosters because the game is fun. And this is the moments how this is a small little point how we implement the vision. Everything what we do in our daily lives. On every meeting, I ask, is that what our players want? And if they say yes, cool. If it's not, we reject it. I'm going to give you another example. I have like more than 10 big investment funds and big gaming companies who wants to buy us. And I never talk about money. I just said, how are you going to help me achieving this vision? I don't care about money. I want achieving this vision. And you can see how clearly everything gets filtered, and you really find partners with whom you can build something big.
And actually, it's actually, you touched this meeting, and actually, because that was kind of my follow-up question, like how you are trying to make the people believe in that vision. Yeah. So how actually you are trying to make that, okay, it's not only your vision, but your managers and probably like managers of the managers in the future as well.
First of all, that's why I put that last slide. You have to believe it. That's the number one. Secondly, you have to create a strategy how you're gonna implement that vision. So we have a vision, we have a strategy around the vision, and for example, every employee in Two Desperados is thinking how they can implement the vision, and they create their own small strategies, and they're creating their own small tactics how they can do that. And I push them, I give them freedom, autonomy. So I'm not the smartest person in the world, that's for sure. And the whole point is that how we're gonna get to the achieving the vision is gonna be from the base. So I give them autonomy, I leave the vision, I push them, I challenge them every single second, moment, everywhere. I challenging, is that aligned with the vision of the company? And after some time, it doesn't happen immediately. After time, they figure out like this guy really means this. And after that, they start changing. And one of the things after longer time, you start attracting people who likes the vision, who wants to help you in that vision.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Of course, Vojislav, stay with us because for the end we'll have this, Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And then, of course, like to everyone, please join us at Slido. Just go to the Slido and add GameCamp as the name of the event, and then you can ask questions and vote on the questions of other people. And now let's invite our second speaker, Michel, co-founder of Blackout Lab, who will be sharing his experience on growing a successful mobile gaming studio.
Hi guys. So my presentation is going to be way shorter, actually. So and not as well designed. There's 2 slides, but I think I'm going to have enough content to talk you through, what I've been through and where we are at the moment. So actually, I'm an ex-Googler, so I've still have a very good relationship with Google. And I left Google in 2014, went on and did a first company, and then went on building a first mobile game studio, which is not there. It's a small game studio based in Ireland. And then Loop Games based in Paris, and Barcelona based in Blackout Lab based in Barcelona. So the thing about our game studio is that we actually have very few people in the game studio. We're only 5 people, all in all. There are people working on both companies. And to be honest, there's not many, we don't spend a lot of time on Loop Games anymore. And the reason is that when you launch a game, the game can actually live by itself for quite some time. So we're 5 founders. All of them are friends of mine. I think that's a really important thing, but I will talk about it later. And we have no employees, even though this is a bit extreme to say, because we do work with some freelancers, especially with developers and with some designers. But we started without developers, and this is something I'm going to talk about myself. We launched a ton of games, so probably not as quality as Two Desperados, but we launched over 40 games over 4 years. And now we have 5 million daily active users. Of course, it doesn't mean much because also it depends on the geo and it depends on the platform. But we are now on a $45 million run rate yearly. We have no fundings, we never raise money. And when I left Google, we left with 10, 15K each with my partner. So I'm going to talk about how we actually achieve those numbers, and actually what I think made those numbers, because there's a lot of luck behind. Just to talk about this number, we're 99% ad revenue, so we have a different business model than Two Desperados, and we're 90% Android. This is partly for strategic reasons, and we actually stopped investing any money in iOS after the announcement of the deprecation of IDFA last year. I believe we can double that number in the next 2 years. Obviously, this is very aggressive, and we, statistically, we're going to fail. That's not an issue. But I think we have a lot of promising games. We have games that we can improve. We are launching new games, and just as a fundamental shift in the business, there's a lot of players coming in the business. There's a lot of new players with the pandemic, and there's a lot of business switching online. So advertising pressure is going to increase, and CPMs is going to go up. With some luck, we should be able to at least 50% in 2 years. I'm going to talk about what I think are the main foundation of doing such a business. As I said, my slides are extremely poor. So first, founders. So founders, I think is something like whenever when you're doing a game studio, it's the same thing as doing any company. Any startups need a good founder relationship, and especially talking to first-time entrepreneur who never worked with anyone before, or maybe just leaving big companies, tech jobs, and are starting a new companies, and you need founders that you're going to be able to work easily with, and that founders can, according to me, can make or break a company. So you need people that work as much as you do, that have the same target, the same willingness to risk, because this is a very cash-intensive business. There's a lot of stress that comes to spending a lot of money, and especially when it's your money. And the good thing about the gaming industry is that you can just start a new company with just another person. You just do 50-50. Usually that's how you start a company. If you're just 2, 3, you do a third each, you do equal shares. And then you see how it goes, and usually it's going to be tough and you're going to fail, but you can just stop the company, start a new company, start new shares. And, I don't recommend having equal shares for second to third time entrepreneur, but for first time, this is very efficient. And you will need time anyway to grow as a as a founder. So before you know how to make a gaming studio, you need to know how to be a founder. And that's applicable to any company. So this one is a bit, I understand this is a bit controversial, but I think there's a misconception that a lot of people in the industry like games. And myself, I'm not a gamer. I love data and I love to make business. And I think a lot of people in this industry, some like games, but a lot of people like data. And without the money that there is in this industry, they wouldn't be as much people. Something that is quite obvious. And whenever I'm talking to investors about our companies, and they first tell me that they played our games and they loved it, I say, like, man, cut the crap. You're not in the target audience. The target audience is female, 55 plus, based in the middle of Texas or somewhere. So we're all there for the love of data, the love of building businesses, and some of us for the love of making games. But I think actually it might be a disadvantage for some of them, especially first-time entrepreneurs. And when you think about it, we merely do games anymore. We have a shell of a game, and we release like a first version, the first beta, and then we iterate on the game, and we change the game, and we A/B test absolutely everything in the game. We A/B test the difficulty, the challenge, the features, the fonts, the icons, and in the end, we have a game that the people want, not that we want. And actually, whenever you have an intuition about something and you want to do something, you're mostly wrong, So everything is backed by data, and you shouldn't. I talk to first-time founders in gaming studios, and they are going after innovation when they shouldn't. If you're going for innovation, I think, in my opinion, at first you're going to fail. So unless you're Tencent or Supercell, I don't think you should innovate that much. And actually, when you look at the latest game of Two Desperados, it's another marble games, and the latest game looks sweet, and I wish you the best of luck. But it's another marble game, and it's another game which is based on renovation features, something that has been in the industry for a few years already. So I think he would agree on this. And why are we allowed to do this kind of stuff? Is that because the industry is not regulated? The industry is not regulated because the tech industry in general is driving the GDP growth at the moment, in my opinion. And that's why there's no regulation. There's a bit of GDPR, but IDFA deprecation is much more dangerous to the industry than GDPR ever was. And the reason is that the red light was invented after the car. So whenever something is driving growth, you don't intervene. And when you look, for instance, the capping. So the capping is how many interstitial of advertising you can show in between. So for instance, we have capping ranging from 60 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on a game. But there's no regulation on how many capping we can show. There's regulation on television advertising, how many advertising you can show. But there's no regulation on capping of advertising. And of course, people will leave, if you have too many ads. But actually, the tolerance to advertising is really incredibly strong, especially in our society where there's ads everywhere. So the web is the Wild West. I know it's even before, like with the first company we ever did, it's all about copycats. And I'm not saying that long term you shouldn't innovate, but when you start, you should stick to what has been done already. And there's only two sheriff in town. It's Google and Apple. And Facebook is not even a sheriff in town. You can survive without Facebook. You cannot survive without Google or Apple. Just because they can shut you down, they can shoot your company just in one instance if you violate policy. So as long as you don't violate those policies, I wouldn't be too worried. And another example of regulation, for instance, if you look at AppLovin. So AppLovin is an interesting case, and we have a very good relationship with them. But to a lot of people in the industry, what they're doing is conflict of interest, going into mobile game studios and then going into MMPs like Adjust. And the SEC or whoever is in charge of M&A is not knowledgeable enough to intervene in those situations. But it's obvious to everyone in the industry that there is an issue, and even I know for a fact that some big studios are leaving Adjust for that reason. Whenever you start, you have many more problems. You need to grow as a founder. You need to grow as you need to grow your expertise. You need to learn about data, but you shouldn't innovate. And I think we're not going to innovate before a long time. And obviously, we're very at the top of things regarding UA and advertising, which are the basics of mobile games today. Like mobile games, developing mobile games is only 10% of what we do. We are actually an advertising company. So the last one is bootstrapping. So this is not applicable to maybe all companies, but definitely this is something that you should be thinking about when you're starting a business. I talked to some guys who actually have raised money even before releasing a game. The story of Loop Games and Blackout is that we started as I'm a former account manager. I'm not a technical person, but we learned online. There's so many tools where you can learn, and I actually developed the first game. And my founders, when they joined me, I told them that the only way they could join me was if they learned how to code. And they learned how to code, and they coded their first game. And most of our first games, especially on Loop Games, are only done by us. And that's one efficient way of bootstrapping, because the games that we do are not complicated. The challenge is elsewhere. If you're starting a company, you should be greedy about everything. You should not spend money. And actually, you shouldn't even incorporate the company. You should have your first game without incorporating. You should have the first data, looking at retention, looking at D1, D7, monetization. And only then, if you have good numbers, you can release the game. And when you think about it, let's, for instance, take a company like two founders who are starting a new company. And they can even spend $5,000 on freelancers to make the game, even though that's, in my opinion, not a good idea, because you should understand at least the technical component of this job. But let's say a two-person company. What you need to, let's say, to start, you should aim for two salaries of $50,000 a year. That's $100,000 of profit, and that's, so I calculated, it's only $270 per day. That's a lot of money, of course, but $270 a day is really doable. And when you start thinking about it this way, the reason is that you can allow lower profit margin and lower actual margin as a whole than a big company. A big company has a lot of fixed costs, and they can't allow themselves to release a game with only 100,000 in profit. They have to release a game which at least is doing several millions in profit, because they have a lot of employees, they have a lot of they have offices, they have many things that we don't have, and they can't allow millions. They can allow 100,000. They are aiming for millions. So when you think about that, the basic of advertising a mobile game is creative and then bids. Bids will define how much volume you will get. The higher bids, the more volume you will get. A big company need high bids. They need high bids because they need high profit, like they need high margin, but they have no way but to have high LTVs. If you're a small studios, you can lower your bids, so you can have the bids twice lower than your competition. You will have a much lower volume, but you will get volume, and you will get volume in a much more profitable way. And in the end, when you look at what's powerful about the mobile game industry is that when you look at the Play Store, there's a bunch of icons. The icon is 512 by 512 pixel. That's the only difference, besides some really big gaming companies. That's the only difference that the user will see. This small icon, along with the name of the app, the name of a company, that's the only thing that they will see. So based on this knowledge, it's completely doable to compete with billion-dollar companies if you have better data. And having better data is not extremely difficult. It is difficult, but it's not extremely difficult. It is doable. And a small, $1 million a year studio can compete with King if they want. And actually, if you look at the big studios, all of them are not willing to go so far in risking stuff. If you look at the example of icons, you have a company like Playrix, which was actually, they have this homescape, gardenscape, and they were one of the first, I believe one of the first huge company to actually change their game, like the icon of their game. They changed the icon of gardenscape, they changed the icon of homescape. This is a sign of an extremely competitive company which is willing to change the image of the game, because the icon is driving most of the download, the icon of the game. And when you look at a game like Candy Crush, or maybe this is not a good example because they have a brand image which is too strong, but a lot of the very, very big companies are not willing to change what they believe is important, their brand, versus what is actually important, which is data. So back to my point of bootstrapping, you should, in my opinion, raise as late as possible. You can grow a business like we did from 0 to 45 million with time. And the moment that you raise, you will have some pressure, you will have some issues, you will have things that we don't have to deal with, and you will sell your freedom, which is, in my opinion, the most important, which is also the reason why we don't have employees, but I believe there might be some question about that.
Hello. Thanks,
Okay.
Michel. Great presentation. I find it super interesting that you have a complete opposite vision rather than Vojislav when it comes to developing a gaming company. So he's more like game focused and you're more business focused from what I could feel. So I think it's both like very complementary vision, but I guess one of the big difference with Two Desperados right now, they have a very large workforce that you mentioned you don't have because it's just the five of you, the 5 founders, and yet you still have a very large scale. In the big studios, what we usually see is that they have people specialized in everything, right? They have people specialized in game development, in UX, in user acquisition, in monetization, in creating good creatives, But how do you do all that? Because in Loop Games and Blackout Lab, you do all this stuff. How did you come with such a wide panel of skills? And what would be your advice for a first-time developer in that regard?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the fundamental difference between us and, for instance, Two Desperados. One of the things is the way we structured our games and what we're going after. When you look at the latest game of Two Desperados, it's obviously something which is aiming at being a multi-million or dozen of million of dollars of revenue per year. And what that implies is that you need to have a strong live ops team. You need to have a lot of people in customer support, a lot of people doing many things that we don't need to do. So we understand that we're not looking and we're not going after these games. And because we're not going after these games, there's a lot of stuff that we don't need at all. And because we have 0 employees, there's a lot of jobs that we actually don't need as well. HR, office manager, there's a ton of legal issues. And when I talk to many founders who had employees, and we were thinking about having employees, but they told me, it's a lot of hustle and you're going to struggle. So it's either 0 employee or 100. That being said, I do think that there's a lot of waste in the industry. Not that I'm completely in favor of a completely automated industry, but there's a lot of jobs that we know we are automating and a lot of other studios are not doing. For instance, there's the example of waterfall management. So waterfall management is, in advertising monetization, what networks you put first, and who has the first share of voice. And in big studios, especially in advertising gaming studios, there's a lot of people working behind this. And we are willing to sacrifice a bit of our margin, like 10%, I believe, 10-15%. But by doing so and having tools that can do better jobs and no optimization at all, we can still get to a decent amount of efficiency without having to hire people.
True. Okay, super nice. And you mentioned that, you're not developing the same games because first of all, you cannot afford to, and you don't necessarily have the skills to do that. So what's your approach when it comes to deciding on which game to develop?
So we work on a special category of game that is called evergreen. Evergreen game is a type of game that have existed for 2,000 years and will exist in 2,000 years. So we're talking about solitaire, dice, many card games, and even marble games to some extent is in this category because it's been existing for many decades. So this type of games, they've been done, they've been optimized, they've been invented, and that's why when you go into this category, you don't need to innovate. I don't think we can afford to go into other game categories, but also we like this category. It's a loyal audience. Retention are usually higher than in other part of the industry, and everything has been done. So you just need to do it the same way, and you just need to do it better. And by better, I mean just analyze the data, and
And if you're not better, I guess, on the game development, you can be better in terms of user acquisition or monetization strategy behind it, right?
Yeah, I mean, our games are impressively simple. I usually don't know why we don't have more competitors in this space. I think there's a lot of attention around hyper casual. There's a lot of attention against, around innovating games. Among Us or stuff like this. But it's, statistically, those people will fail. They're game passionate, and it's a very tough place to be in, especially because on the other side, there's not always gamers, but data scientists.
Yeah, after today, you might have a lot more competition with everyone listening to us. So we often focus on what's great about the entrepreneurial adventure, but there's a lot of painful tasks as well. In your day job, what would you say is the most painful task you do?
I'm not really sure. I think a lot of the stuff you discover along the way. And so, whenever I talked to founders before and they were telling me, what you should and shouldn't do, you hear them, but you don't listen to them. And the reason is that you need to make the mistake by yourself before you actually stop doing them. And it's the same thing, if a kid, you can tell a kid not to put the finger in the fire, but as long as he doesn't do it, he doesn't know. So, the very first company we did, for instance, I was a former Googler, and I was told many, many times, mobile first. It was not a game company. It was another kind of company, mobile first. And I knew that, but still we went for desktop first. So whatever we do and whatever we do wrong are mistakes that anyway we can't avoid, and that even if I tell them to anyone else, there will be, a lot of, everybody will do the same mistakes. But if I had to to go with one stuff, is administrative stuff, tax, accountancy, payroll for ourselves. This is a nightmare. This is, taking a lot of time. We're still, based in Europe, which is not, the most optimized. And even I can see the difference between Ireland, which was way more efficient than France or Spain. There's a lot of requirements, and even doing a full remote company is not that easy, even if you're working by yourself. So administrative is a pain in the ass.
That's clear. That's clear for everyone, I think. And love the fire analogy. Marius, I think we're going to take some questions from the audience, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think like maybe we start from the first question. Like probably it's more related to Vojislav. It's like very much directly related to Vojislav. You mentioned a lot of vision, but do you have a kind of most important KPI that you look at as kind of, okay, you look at the KPI and then by that you understand I'm going in the right direction. Not necessarily like revenue because it's a kind of obvious, but
this is an excellent question because it's much deeper than you think on a first glance. What I look every morning, I check the retentions of our games. Retention and engagement. For example, how many times they get into the game or how much time they spend in a day. But I was thinking about that question because it's much deeper than just, because those KPIs are KPIs for the addict, okay, not for fun, okay. And when you play chess, you don't say, I play chess 5 times a day and I spend $5 per day. You play chess because it's fun, because it's making your lives better. And for right now, I'm using those KPIs. But this is one of the things I have to figure out in next period of time, to figure out to find a right KPIs that will measure the fun, the smile of my players. I know it's super hard, but right now the whole industry is hooked on those addictive KPIs, which makes money, which is completely fine, but I'm not in that business. I'm in a business of creating the best player experience ever, and I want to figure out. So yeah, right now retention, but in the future I should figure out something that is much more suitable for that fun and fulfilling emotion.
Thank you for sharing. Florence, go ahead.
All right, just gonna go read the second one then. Do you see ads-driven business model more suitable or less suitable than in-app purchases driven for starters, small studios? Michel, maybe you can start with this one. You're muted.
Yeah, I can take this one, and maybe I'm in a better position to talk about it because I've been in this ad-only driven business for 5 years. Yeah, definitely advertising is simpler. And one of the reasons is you don't have to segment users. You have ads for actually everybody. So actually, you don't need to do, there's not a lot of thinking behind doing advertising. There's a lot of thinking about what's driving in a purchase, and I'm not qualified to talk about this. There's very few thinking about how you implement advertising. You can get very high, LTVs and CPIs with advertising games as well. We have some games up to $4 CPI in the US on Android, which is higher than some the LTV of some in-app purchase game. There is also there's actually the same pattern as in-app purchase in-app purchase games, in the sense that you have players who are driving a lot of their most of the revenue. So we have 20% of the users bringing 80% of advertising revenue. And that being said, the strategy will be the same. So yeah.
And Vojislav, how do you think?
I'm gonna give a different perspective on this. I think people shouldn't think about ads monetization or in-app monetization in that sense. They should focus on the fun factor, and you're gonna figure out the best monetization path. But for example, I'm gonna give you an example. Right now we are working, you saw in my slides that we're gonna challenge monetization in gaming. And right now we are working on a model that is not its monetization, but it's not some awful ads that practically ruins your fun moment, and it's not in a purchase. So the thing is that if you ask me, you shouldn't think like, yeah, should I go with in-app or should I go in ads? Focus on the fun. When you have a good product, you're gonna sell it somehow, okay? But if you focus on monetization first, that's not. So don't worry about that. Make a product, launch it, and if people are playing that, everything else is gonna be easy.
Okay, thank you. And then maybe like, the next, could you tell a little bit about, how did you start your user acquisition activities? Like, again, maybe starting from Michel, like you're, again, a small company, you're doing that everything by yourself. Like, how did you start with that? Especially with having that bootstrap in mind. How did you have it in mind? How did you start it?
And if I can add something to this question, a lot of people always think that you need money to make money when it comes to user acquisition. What do you think about this as well?
Yeah, so it's true that you need. This is as I said, a very cash-intensive business. So you need money to make money. That being said, you can start with small amounts, and especially because you can afford lower bids if you're targeting lower volumes. I'm not talking about game studios which are going after self-publishing deals, like what's been done in hyper-casual a lot. But we started. I'm not doing any advertising here, but we started with Google. And one of the things is the reach of Google on Android especially is huge, especially thanks to the Play Store, and they have advertising capabilities that other networks don't have, especially search. And Play Store placement. The secret of advertising is only nowadays in creatives. You don't need as much creative when you're doing advertising on the Play Store. You need an optimized icon and optimized text, but you don't need optimized creatives. And you need then one event that you can track in Firebase and then implement in AdWords. So obviously you can do a small campaigns through Facebook as well, but we found that Facebook was extremely expensive for first-time businesses. So you can track, for instance, I don't know, something as simple as day 3 retention. Any users that reaches day 3 retention, you send an event to Firebase and you optimize on this, and this will be enough to start. And as Vojislav said, then it's all about having good retention numbers, whether it's because your game is fun or just you A/B tested the hell out of everything that you can A/B test. So yeah, starting UA is easier than scaling UA on the long term with numerous networks, numerous attribution issues. And one of the things as well with starting with only one network is that you don't have to overthink about organic impacts, last click attribution and all this kind of stuff.
Could you add something?
No, I think Michel have covered most of the things. Yeah.
All right, so it's a question for Michel, this one, but I guess Vojislav, you might have a good point of view on this as well. You mentioned that main challenges are in other places than in actually building the game itself. Could you elaborate on it? So you mentioned different various activities that you do beside actually developing the game, which was 10-15% of your time, if I recall correctly. What are those?
Yeah, so building a game like ours only takes. So we have a marble game, for instance, as well. It's obviously not as big as what you guys have at Two Desperados, but we have a marble game, and it took us a month and a half to develop. Games can be, especially when you're working on existing business models, games can be extremely simple to develop, and especially if you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. So if you're looking, copy pasting what's actually exists before, and obviously that's not all, the technical part is pretty simple. What you will need to be good at is reading data, analyzing data, tracking everything you can, and iterating based on those data. So there's, obviously it goes from optimizing the Play Store and the icon to optimizing whatever is inside the game. So for every single of our game, we have remote config installed from Firebase. And again, it's not advertising for Google, it's just that they have cool products in their suite. And we plug every single metric that we can do in the game. So we plug, difficulty. For instance, for a marble game, we will plug the number of bubbles, the colors, the number of boosters that you can get, the number of coins that you get, the number of reward that you get with rewarded advertising, whether the user will go back to the menu or will stay on the board for several times in a row. And we plug everything, and then we A/B test, A/B test, A/B test. And we optimize based on, to answer the very first question, we optimize based on time of session and retention. So this is still development, but this is about being good at reading data and looking at Firebase, game analytics, and whatever tools exist nowadays. And obviously, then there's a huge part about advertising, about creatives, about and a lot of part about the administrative aspect. But advertising is just the biggest.
Okay, interesting. And Vojislav, you have a different approach, right? For you, the game development, based on what I heard, is more or less your #1 priority, right? What kind of other challenges would you face there?
Oh, it's infinite. I mean, and the only thing that I can give some advice to people is that it's not about the challenges. The problem is that if you have the same problem for a long time, that's an issue. You're always going to have challenges and problems, and you're always going to be in a position that you are not able to do something that you want. That's a normal thing. The whole point is that you don't leave those problems to be part of your DNA. That's my tip on this question, if I can give.
Nice.
And maybe if we go to the next one, I think for the opposite, we'll start from Vojislav. How much time do you spend on strategy of the company? And I like extending the question. I think you were in the position when you were moving from smaller company to much bigger, and of course there was a lot of stuff related to delegations, creation the teams, how much time do you dedicate to it? And it was easy for you, difficult? What kind of advice and learnings you could have from that process, because that was kind of, I understand, quite
Thank you much. For example, one of the main strategy goals for 2022, for example, is we're going to heavily invest in artificial intelligence and personalization in games, in AI for sure. The thing is that when I was much younger, 20 years ago, the main thing about strategy was I'm going to create a strategy and it's going to be 10 commands from God. It has to be this time when I write something, this is for all the time. And it's not like that. For example, I'm going to give you pure numbers. We created a strategy we're going to create a 3-year strategy. That means 1 year in complete detail and 2 years in general. We're going to maybe 5 fully days with top management. But there is one thing. We don't see strategy as something like I said, 10 commands from God. It's in a year, we're going to review ourselves and to see where we are going. So never think about strategy as something that is I have to do it the best strategy ever. Don't. You do it something, give the strategy time for a year and do the review and check what you have learned and reshape the strategy. That's one of the most, I think, important thing I learned about strategy. It's not something that it should be the best thing, and you should be focused on doing things, on doing products, those kind of stuff. And but the strategy is important, obviously. So the whole point is that don't give all the energy in your life for the strategy. Give like 2 truths, but don't everything. It's that's my experience in creating strategy. Okay.
And then Michelle, how would you say your perspective, especially that you need to do a lot of much other stuff by yourself as well?
I mean, the smaller your company is, the shorter your vision has to be. If you're only making $10,000 a month, you can't think further than 2 weeks. If you make 20 million or 40 million, you can think a year ahead. If you make 100 or 200, you can think 5 years, and Amazon is thinking 20 years ahead. So strategy is all about, you shouldn't think about strategy when you first start a company. You should execute, you should work, and you should release as soon as possible. You should learn to release a game and kill a game as fast as possible. But strategy is not a component. I believe I'm not in the same situation as Vojislav, because he's aiming for 100 employees, and obviously you have to think about long-term strategic investment. For us, basically, what our strategy comes down to is every 6 months, 9 months, we have some shift in the companies. So, for instance, right now we're pushing for a lot of networks outside of Google, which is something where we're very late for. And sometimes it can be we're going to push into this kind of game genre, which is a bit more risky. But it's definitely linked to how much you're generating.
Thank you both. And we have one final question from the audience. It's regarding failure. So in gaming, we often say that behind a successful game, there are a dozen which actually failed. How do you approach that? How do you deal with that? Michel or Vojislav?
I can.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the failure is first. I have a big appreciation to a failure. So it's I don't like that approach where fail is okay, everything is. I really personally feel that is much better than fail. And but when fails happens, and it always gonna happen when you try something new. There is no way you're gonna make something in your life and some difference if you don't try some beyond the boundaries. So you're gonna fail, and you're gonna fail often. The thing that I think the most important thing about fail is to learn. Is that when you fail, you do a review, you think about that, and think what I can learn from this fail. This and you change your behavior because of that learning that you have. This is I think one of the most important thing in failure. And I saw people on both sides. Some people are super scared of failing, which is not good. And because failing is not that bad anyway. On the other side, I saw people who, when they fail, they just laugh and go to the next fail. And the whole point is to learn, to go to push the boundaries, to make mistakes, to fail, but to learn. And when you learn, you're gonna go somewhere. That's, for example, right now we are creating an approach to everybody in the company should have been in the position to create a new game, to be in live ops, to do many things. And on one side, that's going to create a lot of fails. A lot of people will fail, and that's gonna show in some maybe revenues or whatever. But the main thing, people will learn. If we create a good framework where people know that they can fail, they're not scared of failing, but they're going to learn from it. You have a team that's going to just put you on a success track. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, so obviously failure is part of the business, and it sucks, especially when you've been working hard on a game. And I think one of the challenges is actually to know when you failed, because whenever we release a game, we work on the game for a few weeks, months before we decide to kill it. And now we have come to a certain degree where we actually strong enough to kill a game when we know it's not going to live forever, and when we know that we can't scale UI, for instance. But there's a lot of young, starters, founders who would actually fail at seeing when the game is a failure. This is extremely tough, and they can spend a year and a half optimizing their game, working on the wrong elements. When the first thing you have to do, for instance, is just working on the tutorial for like a month. You need to work on the tutorial. It sucks. It's the most annoying stuff to do in a game, but you need to work on that. I think, one of our big challenge was, because when you pour a lot of money into a game, for us, for instance, I don't know, like 30K, and the game fails, because most of our games, as I said, are extremely simple to develop. So we only spend like 5-10K. So when we spend a lot of money on a game and we have to kill it, it's extremely tough. And I think this is where, just like success, actually, you need good founders. If you're alone dealing with this kind of stuff, it's going to be extremely tough. But if you have people who are zen about it, that's way easier. Just like success to manage, because success is not so easy to manage as well. Just the best stuff is just to move on, keep working, and at first, if you only have failure, it's going to be extremely stressful. But just like Vojislav said, it's all about persistence and obsession.
And actually, in this case, following up on that question, what actually makes you to kill the game? What are the red flags, or what based on what you're thinking? Okay, that's not gonna fly. Okay, let's kill it and go to the next project.
Well, there's some of the games where we actually, within development, where we understand that it's such a big failure, especially when we're working with bad developers. This can happen if you're working with freelancers and you don't hire people. The game development can fail. Then when we release the game, and there are some just metrics where that you can fix the game. So anything above 25% of D1 retention, you can potentially work with it, and get it to 35. An ideal number would be more like 40, 45 for first day retention. But if you can get a game to 35 and, you can get cheap CPI, then you can get away with it, even though it's not going to be a good game. So I think it comes down to experience and knowing, when you see the data, how bad it is. The first-time retention can also, tell you a lot. If it's below 10 minutes, I think you're screwed. But then again, any game can be saved to some extent when you work on the tutorial and the difficulty and everything. So we kill games when we see that the data are catastrophic. And usually we try to work on the game. We do like 3-4 updates and trying to tweak stuff. And the final stuff is a tougher one to recognize. It's just advertising scale that you may not have on every game. And this is partly luck, partly competition, something which is a bit tough to predict before. I know that hyper-casual studios can a bit predict before by doing fake advertising and fake landing pages and testing games. We're not doing this kind of stuff. I think when you have a good game with good retention, good metrics, but you understand that you need twice the LTV to actually scale the game, this is way longer to realize. You need like 2 months to understand that you need to kill the game.
Marius, you're muted, sorry.
And actually, follow-up question based on that to both of you, because it's actually quite interesting topic for me. I see from the discussions that for many developers, especially smaller ones, they see the hyper casual as the good starting point. Yeah, so like if people do not have the idea for the game, they usually go let's create a hyper casual. How do you see it from your perspective?
Maybe you want to start, Vojislav, on this one?
I can say. I mean, like hyper casual is. I mean, like this is how I'm seeing things. Okay, maybe I'm completely wrong on this, but this is how I'm seeing this. You have chess, you have like Monopoly. You have video games, you have mobile games, you have like. I mean, like Nintendo has started working in 1885, selling cards, and I mean, like. And when you imagine that you ask Nintendo now, should we start no, you should start what you think you love, what you love. You should check the market, just don't go in like some narrow market, super narrow. That's why we choose casual games. I like casual games, but I like more, for example, AAA games. But I'm completely fine with casual. Try to find something that you're passionate, because it's not about where you're going to succeed. It's about how much energy you're going to have in the places where when it's not going that good. Because if you don't like casual, hyper casual, for example, I will never. If all the money in the world is in the hyper casual, I will buy a team and say like, okay, guys, make a hyper casual, and I will be somewhere else. The thing is that I think you should do things you love, because you are the perfect player. It's not that bad, that good as you get marketing, you're gonna figure out audiences, those kind of stuff. But I really believe, because the passion is super important, that it's gonna give you strength to go in tough times. So should they start in a hyper casual? Yes, if they like that.
Thank you.
Nice.
Michel?
Yeah, so actually I have an opposite vision on this, because I'm not in gaming for games. But let's just talk about what hyper casual is. Hyper casual is an extremely ad intensive business. They have capping down to 15 seconds. So obviously the user experience is terrible, and it's part of the reason why Apple, like in my opinion, decided to deprecate IDFA, is just to cut down a bit on all the advertising and all the advertising-based business. This is because of hyper casual, and if you yourself, you're interested in hyper casual, and Marius, you're interested in leaving Google. There is this business is a tough business to be in, especially because I know I have a few friends working in hyper casual, and I know that part of the business now is under a lot of pressure of China. And one of the reasons is when you do a hyper casual studio, your goal is just to have as many prototypes as you can, and you actually pay beforehand a fee for those prototypes. You can pay, I don't know, a few K up to way more if the studio is actually famous. So this is going to be an extremely even tougher cash intensive business, and also you have competitors like Supersonic and Lion Studios, which have access to data. Now, again, like we don't know if they're using it or not, but they have access to data that a lot of others don't. So I think in my opinion, this is an extremely risky business, and you can only go there if you've been there for a few years. But now I think the party is over. I mean, not the party of this business, just the party to join the business. The business is going to last for a while, but I think it's an extremely tough business to start with. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend.
Thank you. Florent, do you have any last question?
Yeah, maybe we can end on that. I know that from the audience, we have a few people that probably want to start their mobile gaming company. So maybe we can end on one major piece of advice you would give to a first starter in this industry. what would it be?
Okay, I can do it. It should be easy. Yeah, you just have to believe in yourself. That's the most important thing. I mean, like, I failed at least 15 years every day. Okay, my first business was websites. I created a pretty decent website company. Then I switched to games. And life told in those 20 years, 80% of the time of the days, life is telling me you are a loser, you are not capable of this, you will fail. Just that moment, believe in yourself, because I mean, like, I'm sure that there is at least one person now listening to this that will change the way how we playing games in next 10, 20 years. So it's just believing in yourself. That's one of the most important things. And I'm sure that I'm going to believe in you. That's for sure.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, I think the main stuff, it's a tough question, but I think the main one is just to do it. So I think a lot of people listening are in bigger companies. Maybe they're employees as account managers in advertising networks or in other gaming studios. And when you work in those companies, you're exposed to a ton of business. So, when I was working at Google, you work constantly with people who are actually younger than you, or have the same skills, or started the same way as you did, and they managed to have success. And I think a lot of it is just about people starting. The worst case that can happen is that you're going to lose time and money. But even if you're, any entrepreneur skill and experience is extremely valuable, even on a resume. If you only trying the entrepreneur route for a few months, you can get a job back in the same company as you were, or in other companies at a higher pay, just because you have this experience, because you learn so much by doing by yourself, and you don't learn the stuff that you expect to learn. You learn about business in general, and you learn as a person. You grow as a person. So I think the most important is to understand that the risk is not real. The worst that you can do is just lose a few months and maybe a few quids, but that's it. And that's, we're in an extremely lucky time where it's extremely easy to launch something. The Play Store is extremely accessible. It's just $99, or maybe it's free now, I don't know, to join the Google Play or the Apple Store. And if your excuse for not launching is risk, then it's the wrong excuse. There's many other excuses, valid ones, but risk is not one of them. So yeah, my advice is just to start, and you will learn. You will fail, you will learn, and you will get better at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good end words.
Yes. So thank you, Michel. Thank you, Florent. Thank you, Vojislav, for sharing your knowledge, your time. Thank you to all people who were listening and were engaging the discussion. So I hope to see you at one of the next webinars. Again, thank you guys for sharing your knowledge. So if you're listening to that webinar, please visit our website gamecamp.io, and you can have info about the next webinars happening in the next weeks. For example, the next one in the next week will be focused around creatives in gaming and apps. But for now, thank you for your time, and thank you for attention. Have actually good afternoon and morning maybe for someone. And thank you again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Mariusz.
Thank you, Mariusz.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.